this woman, Lori, just brought up her son, and I just started getting, things right away that related to him. I started crying because it's just like as like I was sharing, I just was like getting really emotional about it and like what was coming through. So um after I wrapped that class up, it just came in right away to release on the 17th. I would be so curious to know from Lori if September 18th is any sort of significant day for her. But it just came in to release it on that day. So I've already scheduled that because it's pretty much unedited. Um, so that reading will be coming out next week, in case you missed it. But yeah, it was like I got out of that after and I was like, oh my gosh. I had to really do a bit of a reset for it. But yeah, thanks, Caitlin. Definitely very, emotional. She said it was cathartic, which was very nice. I'm so glad to be able to provide any of that, clarity and support and reflection. So if you are interested in watching that, it is not out yet, but it is scheduled to come out next week. Caitlin is wild ride in the audience. I can't imagine how the two of you were handling it. Yeah, I know. And that's the thing that's interesting too, is I just was feeling it. So that would be clairsentience for anyone who is curious about understanding the psychic clairs, which I'll pull up here. I do my once a month workshop, and I'll put the date for that in case anybody's interested. September 24th, 1 p.m. Because all of a sudden I was just like overcome with the emotion. I'm just like channeling and explaining it. And then stuff was coming through and it just was like hitting me like right away. And that's not even looking at her. So imagine if we were in person or if we were on a video call, like most of my readings are. I wasn't even seeing her. So I wasn't even seeing Lori's reaction. I'm just seeing like text pop up in the chat and I was crying. So if she's sitting there and if she was crying, and then I would start crying even more. So I would have to break out the tissues and blow my nose, I'm sure, for that one. But yeah, so that was really special. So I'm glad it happened, and then it's just something that's great for people to see. And I also share just kind of the anecdotally. I definitely I have mediumship abilities. Like I know that that's the only reason why I was even able to do a reading like that. But it's not something that I have nurtured. I don't walk around identifying as being a medium. I haven't taken any certifications in that. I know people that have, but I have done kind of one-off mediumship readings, some through my psychic development program, and then some where it's like I'm just providing a reading for someone, and then I can tell like it's getting interrupted, and I'm like, I think that's like a spirit coming in. I don't know, and because I'm just getting something that's like unrelated. There's like an energy behind it, but I had talked to a medium earlier this year, or a few months ago, and she said, because I was asking her about it. And I was like, okay, I know I have a blogger on Mediumship because I'm like spooked, because I'll be walking around and go, oh, there's somebody in here. I don't want to talk to them. And so I've just kind of operated in that reflex of like, nope, closing the door. And so we were having like just a heart-to-heart discussion about it. And then she started channeling, it just started dropping in. And one thing that came through was for me to work on my mediumship in September. And I was laughing my butt off after a class on Monday because it was September 1st. It was September 1st. And I'm doing a reading that was like a backup reading that ended up being mediumship. And I'm like, well, there we go. So I guess I'm doing that this month, just as she had channeled for me, just as came through from her guides that I would be working on that this month, and it came in right away. So that was helped me to kind of clear a little bit of the energy because I was able to laugh about it. You can turn it on and off easily by setting clear boundaries. It's just to strengthen them. Yeah. So basically that's what I do is I just like kind of clear it and say no. But the thing is they'll just kind of pop in and then I have to turn them off and say no. Because I'm not trying to connect with anybody, but I do have, and sometimes it's loved ones, and sometimes I go, I don't know who that is. And so then I'm just like, bye. Come to me when I'm unconscious in my sleep and pop into my dream if you have something you want to say. So yeah, it's just like I have that like off switch going, but I just don't actively engage in like trying to turn it on. Like I didn't even do that in Monday's reading, other than like she prompted by saying, "Oh, my son," and it was just like before I was even like trying to do anything, I just was getting information on the sun, and I was like, "Okay, I guess like I'm just gonna get this info." Like I wasn't trying to do it. That's what I mean. So it's just have to practice in some different ways with intention. That's kind of how it had come through with the medium I spoke to, is just sitting down and saying, I'm going to try to do a reading right now, rather than what I have been doing, which is where it just kind of comes in and then I turn it off or I leave it on. When I'm walking around in my own life is where I have blocks. And if someone comes to me, I have a bit of like imposter syndrome where like sometimes people, like if I do an event in person, people will come up and be like, so are you a medium? Then I just go, no, because I feel like worried. I feel nervous. Like I get in my head about it. I'm like, well, what if they want me to tune into someone and I don't get it right? And it's just because I haven't practiced it. And I know because that's the feeling that I had when I first started doing psychic readings, where I'm like, oh, what if I get wrong information? I don't worry about that anymore because I've done so many readings that I'm like, I'm going to get what's supposed to come through. And I just haven't. It's like with tarot. I did the same exact thing with tarot, where I was like, oh, like there's a certain meaning for the cards. What if I get it wrong? And I had to just like do self-study, do a class, and then I started to get over it. There's still a lot of cards I don't know because I haven't like pulled them. So probably have to do another round of study for that. But I do pull cards for that every day. So it's just a thing that's in my head, which is why I like to remind people that just because somebody is an intuitive or provides reading, it doesn't mean that I know everything. I am also a person. So because of that, I can get in my own head just as anybody else could. I could dismiss things that come through. I'm definitely a lot better at that now. But I'm also just like, Bev was saying earlier, do you sleep? I'm kind of running around doing a lot of things. So then it's easy for me to not prioritize or not reallocate my energy toward developing something like this more with intention, because I'm keeping myself busy. And that's where, I am supposed to be slowing down. I know that. And apparently this month I'm supposed to be doing a little bit more with this area on purpose, not by accident. Maybe need to figure out your boundaries around. Yeah, because I have set up some parameters, but then I have to remind, because it's like somebody pop in and I'll be like, no, I said not, in this situation, not in these circumstances. And I just kind of like, wait a second and just like, say it a few times. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. And then I can go back to whatever it was that I'm doing. But honestly, I think it's just like keep getting it knocked on my door because I'm not engaging with it. So they're just like, how about now? Want to talk now? And then I'm like, no. So I know that it's just like they're antsy and they want to talk, and obviously I can do it. And I just have chosen not to for a long time. You're not alone. And something that has come up fundamentally over and over and over again in the readings that I have done this year are these ideas of how we are growing as individuals, how we are taking better care of ourselves, and then how we are connecting to community. So if you are looking for guidance, 1, you are always welcome in class. 2, you can look back at some of those readings or resources, reach out, get a reading. So there's always opportunities to connect, and sometimes it's just the missing piece is us needing to understand ourselves a little bit more, understand and identify our patterns, in choices and responses, in how we are processing information, processing our emotions, and great tools for that. Obviously, therapy, being in community, psychic readings, astrology readings, human design readings, Akashic records readings. Like there's so many different platforms, mediums, opportunities for doing that soul work, that reflection, and making sure that you have the tools that you need so that you don't feel that you're alone and that you don't feel completely lost or frustrated or disconnected from the universe. Again, I should find the actual universe card because it's not even this one. But that you can feel tied not only to yourself, like who you are now, who you were, your potential of what you can become, but other people in your cohort, other people that you admire, that you'd like to not copy, not become, but be inspired by, to encourage you to continue in that growth. Just the connection, all different forms. I don't identify as an energy healer, but I can check people's energy psychically. So I've talked about this in some classes before about looking at chakras. That was something that I had learned in my psychic development school. It's like, what are the chakras? What do they represent? And then you can read into them. So you can go one at a time and gather information and then here's some suggested practices or things you can work on, or which ones are underdeveloped or which ones are overactive. And that can change and shift as it does over time. So that is kind of that's my inroad into it. You can think about it like this. So the same as when I do a reading for the week ahead, you go, how do you read into the week ahead? You have the intention, you have the focus. Obviously, I've practiced a lot. I've worked with guides to support receiving the information. So for me, it's as simple now as I just ask, and then I use my pre-existing psychic dictionary methodology for getting the information, for translating it. And then you'll hear it when I do my readings, is sometimes I start saying something out loud, or I ask a follow-up question, or like, is this what it is, or is it that? And then I'll get a yes or a no, or I'll get some text of answer that's addressing it or speaking to it. I think that's honestly been happening more and more in my readings. You'll hear them in my week ahead videos. I know it was in the collective video because I was just listening to it this morning, where it's like I'm having a conversation. You're kind of hearing me say some of it out loud. I'm like, does it mean this, or is it something like that? And then not that I'm getting a yes or no, but I'm actually getting a sentence in response. I'm like, oh, okay, or getting a word. And then I can work with that. You just take that and you apply it to chakras. So instead of saying, what do we need to know for the week of November 24th through December 1st? Instead, it's, all right, I want to look into each of the chakras. I'm going to start with the root chakra. What does this person need to know? What's the status of their root chakra, even more simply? And oftentimes, I could just get information. I could get a visual, but something that I learned, which I kind of think is helpful, is you could picture it as if you are walking into the chakra. So maybe you're the avatar, the person is an avatar, but you could imagine you're walking into a red room, and that room is representing the root chakra. And you look around the room, and so you're getting what's the state of it? Is it falling apart? Is it well decorated? You're looking for the person. What are they doing within the room, the person that you're reading? And then you can just say, okay, great, spend that time in there. And then you go to the next room, and the next room is orange, sacral. And then you keep going. So you can create different structures for it. You could just ask simple questions, or you could take it deeper with some sort of a visualization like that. I've done both of those before in readings for people. And you can go room by room, or if you just want to keep it simple, you're shorter on time, you just say, all right, what do I need to know about this person's chakras or my own chakras? Which chakra is most out of balance? And then you're just looking for the answer. And then you do a follow-up. Okay, so it's my throat chakra. That's the most out of balance. What are some suggested practices that I could do to heal it? And then you get that information. And so if you just want the short version and you're not doing a full workup, if you will, then you can just ask what's what I say, like the most overactive, what is the most undernourished, the most challenged. Are there any others that I should pay attention to in the middle there? And you just asking those questions, and then that way you don't have to go through all of them, but then you have to ask specific follow-ups about each of them just to get what you need to do something with it. Definitely number one people to ask about that are Reiki masters, because you can feel, and I know that as someone who is intuitive and who can connect with people and who also is on the receiving end of that. So whether I am trying to connect with them or just they're just giving stuff off and I just start receiving it, that you can feel other people's energy. Or if you have Reiki done, I've only had it done in remote settings. Like I've attended some Insight Timer classes where they've done it, and then you're like, oh wow. But I've never had like a one-on-one, personally, a one-on-one session with somebody doing it. But yeah, it's almost, again, if I just draw a comparison around the psychic readings, one might say, well, how do I know it's working? Especially if I don't see anything or feel anything, or not, I'm seeing things as visuals, but I don't see them reacting. I don't feel anything, if you will. And they don't necessarily feel anything. Like maybe I'm reading them and it's not like they're sitting there and they're like, my body's tingling because you're reading me. That's not necessarily happening. So then you might say, well, how do I know it's working? Well, and how you know it's working is what they say out loud to me to confirm, yes, that is right. And I think it's the same thing with Reiki and any sort of energy healing, is that it's not always something you can give words to. Whereas for a psychic reading, it is. The nature of it is a conversation. It's a dialogue with the spirit team, with the person, them with themselves in reflection. And so it becomes a little bit more obvious that it's working. So that may be, I'd be curious if that's a little bit of what your question or concern is, if you will. Concern feels strong, but I feel it when given to me, but not the other way around when I give. Yeah, so every psychic reader is different, where I have sometimes in certain readings, in certain situations, where I am doing the reading. The difference is that when I'm doing the reading, I'm pulling them towards me. I am going into their energy. And so it's almost the opposite. It's the opposite of what you do when you are doing energy healing for other people. You can apply energy healing into a reading, and I've done that before, where it's just like you're kind of giving them an energy and intention. I honestly forget about doing that most of the time, because most of the time in my readings, we're focused on just getting information. And so then I often don't think, I think to do that, if I'm just out and about in the world and there's like a kid crying, I'll just sit there and like try to send like energy at them or the family. But I often forget to do that if I'm in a reading with someone, because I'm just focused on our conversation and what we're discussing. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I feel anything when I do that. But I know from the experience in being read, in reading other people, that there is an energetic exchange. And so just trusting that, I think, is kind of all we can really go off of, until and if somebody says something to confirm, oh yeah, I like felt something. So I think it's the long and short. I think it's okay if you don't register feeling anything, as long as the other person does, if that's what you're trying to do, if you're trying to give them sort of healing, as long as they feel it, it means it worked. And maybe the pro is, if you don't quote unquote feel anything, it also means that you're not feeling potentially the drain of it. You're not feeling like your energy going away from you. That might be kind of unpleasant. And so maybe it's a good thing that you're not feeling anything, but you might feel like a little bit tired afterwards, which is what often happens with psychic readings. I don't usually get it after like our week ahead classes, other than if I'm doing it late in the day and I'm just tired. But if I am in person and I'm reading at an event and I read and read and read and read person after person, I feel exhausted afterwards. A reading is energy. It is an exchange of energy. I've heard somebody say this as well. It's like when you are an intuitive and you're providing readings for people, you're just translating energy. So you're translating something that's not tangible into words. So it's an energy to speech translator. And that energy may come in through the different psychic layers. It could come in through a visual, through a sound, through a feeling, through an emotion, through just words, knowing, gut feeling, etc. But then being able to decode that and then translate it literally to the person in front of you, either fully in truth of just stating, here's what came in. You want to have it as unfiltered as possible, or being able to add on to it and expand and say, all right, well, when I receive this symbol, it is something like this. And you play with the energy, and then it continues to expand and you get additional information on top of it. I don't often sit and just think about it. But every once in a while, like if we are having a conversation like this, I go, oh yeah, that's kind of weird. It's cool.